Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Jake Williams Show, episode 40. Back in the saddle again. I will say I have to clear some things up. I made a mistake early on or the last episode I had out talking about, Xbox and all that stuff. I made a mistake and said that because, Father's Day approaching at the time of that recording, that I was going to do a whole episode dedicated to remembering my dad, and I thought it could be really important and all these things. Um, that's not coming out. That's just not happening. I was going on vacation. I had to plan that ahead, and there was a lot of other things that I wanted to do that I just didn't necessarily have time to do or do it properly. So rather than not give it 110% and do my best to make something really special and mean a lot, not only to me, but people that knew my dad or people that may have been through my situation of, losing a parent too soon. Rather than phone it in, I wasn't going to phone it in, but rather than not release it to the full potential that I want it to be, then I'm just going to hold off and do it on his birthday of this year. So it'll probably come out a day or two before his actual birthday, but that's when I'm going to present it to you guys, and I'm going to work hard at that and make it the best I can. And I got to stop doing that. I think that's a big problem of mine. I get wrapped up in an idea and I so excited and I want to tell you guys about it because, that's kind of what the Jake Williams Show is. It's a facet of it is I get to just have like a therapy session with you guys, and I jumped the gun and announced something way before it was ready to be released. I swear I never do that. Anybody that is a friend of mine or follows me on social media knows how funny that joke really is. Some of you might not, but I promise from now on, if there's anything big coming to this show or something exciting that I want to announce, I will do my best to hold off and not tell you anything until it's ready. So without further ado, let's actually get into the meat of today's episode. I want to talk about something that former founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, said about big tech companies, because this is something that I've been thinking about for a while, and I just thought when would be the right time to do an episode on it, or when would be the right time to talk about it. So I figure this just happened as I'm recording this on June 24th. So I definitely want to talk about it. He mentions that he thinks, quote, technology has become so central that governments have to think. What does that mean about elections? What does that mean about bullying? What does it mean about wiretapping authorities that let you find out what's going on financially or drug money laundering, things like that? He continues to say, so yes, the government needs to get involved. So this is something I've been thinking about for quite some time. And you look at where we are as a society and how things have shaped our society lately. And I'm looking at an article from CNN where he said this. He was at the Economic Club of Washington, D.C. when he mentioned this. You look at the tech companies, the big ones that come to mind. We've got Facebook, we've got Amazon, Apple, Google, and I'd say you could probably throw in Twitter as well. But I don't necessarily want to lump the social media sites in there, but they're obviously huge, and it could be a huge impact. Oh, Bill Gates continues to, go on with what he was saying, and in this kind of idea, he says that he thinks the tech sector is going to have more regulations, and he goes on to say, quotes, again, the fact that now this is the way people consume media has really brought it into a realm where we need to shape it so that it benefits the need to outweigh the negatives. And again, I'm not completely against this. I'm also someone that's in the camp that believes that we need to, break up the tech companies because they are getting too big. And I've talked before, way back, I think in December, I talked about Alex Jones and at the time Gavin McInnes, but since then he got his YouTube channel back or whatever. And I've talked about, different people that got deplatformed or taken off different websites. I mean, most recently was Steven Crowder with his whole situation with Vox and that whole ordeal. And I'll kind of touch on that in a little bit. But I think we're getting in a weird place with these tech companies where I think Bill Gates is absolutely right, where everybody is getting their information from those sources. They're getting it from these companies like Facebook and Google and Apple and all these really big Silicon Valley tech types. They're definitely getting their information there. Now, I don't necessarily know about the narrative of that they favor liberal media or they're against conservatives. I don't know if that's true because, like it or not, regardless of someone's politics, if they can make your platform money, you're going to keep them on your platform. And I don't necessarily think that the tech companies are going to completely get rid of that idea. And they can say they're doing different hate speech measures and different things to get people off, and it has worked in the past. I mean, Alex Jones is the biggest example of someone getting completely deplatformed. Good Lord, can I talk today? Deplatformed. He's one of the biggest examples. But I think there does need to be some sort of regulation. I mean, for Pete's sakes, we've been talking about it since 2016 with how the 2016 election was handled, where you had all these Russian bots or Russian trolls really control a narrative and get that information out there. And I understand that there's two sides to every story, right? And I can understand the fact that it's also on the responsibility of the user of Facebook or Twitter or whatever tech company thing that they're using, whether it be your Google searches or your iPhone or whatever. But there's also something that you can't always put the onus on someone else. If you are a big enough company like a Facebook or a Google, you should be able to curate these things better. You should be able to have people on staff to make things work more efficiently and stop a spread of misinformation. Now, I'm not completely saying that like somebody who maybe is a right-wing conservative and they have a YouTube show or a podcast or something and they spread their own misinformation, I don't necessarily think they shouldn't be on Facebook. But if you are seeing things getting shared that is clearly not reputable and just not true and very slanderous, yes, actions should be taken to make sure that people don't get horrible misinformation. So I think there's two sides of it. I absolutely think that, your uncle that only gets his information from Facebook or your brother that gets information just from Facebook, the onus should also be on them to get different sources and get different sides of each story. Now, if anybody that's listened to the show and any stuff that I've talked about politically, you know that I'm a left-leaning guy. I would argue I'm a left-leaning libertarian, but people don't think that exists, or people like to make fun of libertarians. Whatever. I'm a left-leaning guy, but I will still go to other sources and go to conservative sources to see what they think. I think that's the best way to build an idea of what's going on in the world if you want to figure out what it was politically. I'll admit there was a time, and sometimes I still battle with this today. I've gotten better at it, but there was a time where I would just go get my news from left-leaning sources and things like that. Now, I didn't use Facebook specifically, but I would go other places, but it was also left-leaning. And then I said, you know what, that's not productive. I've got to do things differently and go and look at, conservative things. So what I really want to get at is I struggle with parts of this because as someone, I do believe in the market, in the free market, and competition makes everything better, and we do need a good market, and the market should make things rise to the top. But I also believe in regulation is important. Now, although I'm going to lose people in saying, well, we already have enough things regulated and, this, that, or the other thing. I don't think there's a huge problem with regulation. Regulation can be very good. I think that, again, it's a dirty word. When you put in regulation and you're saying, well, you're cutting into the private sector, you're cutting into these things with your antitrust things. I think people need to understand it's not good when a company has as much power and influence as Google does or Amazon, where Amazon has almost completely killed multiple industries. It is taking full, and look, I don't have it anymore, but when I had Amazon Prime, that 2-day shipping was a dream. It was great. It was perfect. The Postal Service has its problems. I'll admit it's not great. It's not perfect. But if you eliminate those things and you start taking out industries, I mean, when's the last time you've gone through a town and seen the streets filled with mom and pop shops? You don't do that anymore. It's not just Amazon. I understand that. But what I'm trying to get at is companies getting too big and controlling a marketplace is never a good thing. I mean, look at the entertainment industry right now. It is Disney. That's it. I obviously know there's other companies out there, but since they acquired Fox, it is, I mean, you could look at Disney's release schedule until I think it was 2027, and every other week was a Disney movie. They own pretty much all of Hulu, the second biggest, maybe the biggest, I'm not quite sure on the numbers on that, but one of the biggest streaming services out there. Disney owns almost all of it. They own majority of it. And you don't think that's bad? When companies control their own market and they control their own thing, it's not great. And I was just talking about this. They control the information they can get out there. And they control what people see and what people you can start to form people's opinions. I mean, for Pete's sake, Google is so big, it's a verb. It's a freaking verb. That's how big it is. And I'm not saying all their money goes to bad things, and these companies can do great things, but I think there needs to be something to make competition easier for other companies. I mean, if you're trying to make a different kind of search engine, you're never going to compete with Google. It's never going to happen. If you want an online store, you're never going to compete with Amazon. Now, if you want to have something to compete with Apple, maybe, but it has to obviously have the Android operating system, I guess. But I never thought when I see a company get as big as these companies do that this is a good thing for everybody. And you could argue, yeah, it brings jobs, but look where Amazon was going to go before they were chased out. They were going to go to New York. Do you really think New York needs an Amazon headquarters? Why not go to smaller towns? They don't care about that. They don't care about jobs. Believe me, this is not going to be an easy task, especially when you look at how much we use this technology in these companies in our lives. I mentioned, when you have Amazon Prime, how easy it is to get products. You can get 2-day shipping. 2 days. It's insane. You look at Facebook. Almost everybody has Facebook. Everybody uses it, and they're great tools. Don't get me wrong. But how many people have an iPhone? Or how many? Like I said, Google is a verb. I have a Google Pixel phone. I've talked about Google on this show before. It's really hard to get people to separate from these and allow this thing to happen. But we cannot continue to sit by and let these companies dominate the marketplace and dominate the narrative. I am someone who wants to fight for the little guy. I'm someone that thinks that we can't keep having these mergers. When you have things like Amazon taking Whole Foods and the Washington Post, and you have, Google that has YouTube, which, again, if it's not enough for Google to have the biggest search engine in the world, they have to have the biggest video hosting service in the whole entire world. Don't you think that's a little big and excessive? Don't you think that we should try and make some differences? Now, I know, again, as someone who wants competition to rise up, I totally understand that. And I think it's true that we should have alternatives to YouTube. I've been beating that drum for months, you can go back further, years I've been beating that drum that we should have competition to YouTube. But you know how hard it is to even have that idea? Because there are other video hosting websites out there. There's Vimeo. God, I keep saying the wrong thing. Vimeo. There's Dailymotion. But does anybody ever think to go to that if they want to learn how to tie a tie or change a flat tire? No, they're going to Google it and it's going to take them right to YouTube. If we want to keep the capitalistic approach to the marketplace and keep things competitive, you cannot do that in a world where it is run by 4 to 5 companies. You cannot do that. You have to strive to make the market more inclusive and have more people, because the more options you have in the market, it's better for consumers. I truly believe that. Now, again, it goes back to, should the government really be involved? Shouldn't it be on these companies? Shouldn't it be on people to innovate? How, just as I mentioned just a second ago, think how hard it would be if I came with an idea that said, okay, I'm going to create the next YouTube. I'm going to create the next video hosting service. Gives all the power to the creators, makes it very easy for creators. And I'm going to try and compete with YouTube, the biggest video hosting service on the planet. I'm going to compete with them. Even if I have the best idea in place, think of how hard it is to separate people from that platform, because I can only imagine, but YouTube has been around since 2005, and having that 14-year install base where it is not only a part of the zeitgeist, like I said, it is a part of your daily life. If you want to learn how to tie a tie, you go to YouTube. You want to learn how to start a fire, you go to YouTube. You Google it, and then you go to YouTube. Think of how hard that would be for me to compete with that, because not only am I competing with the big website in of itself, but I'm also going to have to fight with Google. And I'm not saying that Google would eliminate, like, if I made the site and you searched for my site, you wouldn't find it right away. I don't think Google does that, but they could. They could very well do that. So if I'm trying to make this video hosting site and I actually start making headway with them and competing with YouTube, what's going to stop Google from saying, okay, if you really want to stop us, you really want to beat us, well, we're going to take away your search hits and trying to make it harder. We're going to push you further down the line when you search it. Better yet, if I keep making headway, it gets stronger and stronger. Guess what? We'll push you to the second page. Honestly, whoever looks at the second page of a Google search, unless you're extremely desperate to try and find information, you will almost never go to the second page. I'm not insinuating that Google would do that, but they very well could. See what I'm kind of driving at? Why we need to kind of put these out of the way and find ways to make the market broader? Because when they kind of have that power, it's hard to do it. Yes, you could probably use Yahoo, or you could use Bing, maybe. That's possible, but we all know that those aren't as good and efficient as Google. So you're going to just default to using the verb. It's a part of our vocabulary. And we have to look at ourselves and say, can we let this happen? Better yet, what if I make a competition to, say, Apple? It's a great app. It's one of the best apps out there. Apple could very well say, you know what, and we could even put it in our marketing. We're here to be, and I can't say iTunes anymore because I killed it, but we're here to be the next Apple Music, or the next, bigger than Spotify, say that. Like, this is going to be your single source for podcasts and music and all that. Which, by the way, I am up on Spotify. If you didn't know, based on the sponsorship, quick plug here, I switched to Anchor. Big fan of them. They've treated me well. I have not, as of this recording, I am not back up on Apple yet, but it is on Spotify and Pocket Casts, and working on other places. Anyway, I digress. Apple can take you off their store. And again, this is fully within their rights. I'm not saying that's not anything that's horrible. I mean, I completely understand their private business. Whatever the hell they want to do with their business, they can. But to say that, oh, we're directly going to compete with Apple Music, we're going to be better, bigger and better than them, this and the other thing, Apple could say, well, you can't use our devices. You can't be on iPads or iPhones or the watch, Apple Watch, goodness. They can very well say no and keep that away. I don't believe that we should let 4 or 5 companies dominate a market of any kind, not just big tech. I'll do a whole episode about Disney down the line because, my God, that's its own episode. But I think we should definitely think about the positives of breaking up big tech and having better regulation and having the government step in. Look, I get it. I hate the idea of having the government get involved in anything with a business or the private sector, but something's got to give because bad information's getting out there. It's not that hard. Especially, I mean, if the Russians can do it, must be pretty easy. Sorry to any Russian listeners out there, I guess. I think the thing I want to be most clear about with what I've been saying here is I don't necessarily, it's not that I hate these companies. I think they're great companies. They're very effective and useful at what they do. I use Facebook every day. I have a Google Pixel Gen 1, only the first one because I'm cheap. I have an iPad. I use an Amazon Kindle to read books. I mean, I use these products. And I don't think they're evil, but I'm coming from a side of to truly continue to make the market work and make these things work, you have to break them up and you have to give other companies a chance. It's not from a thing that I hate prosperity. That's just not true. That's totally against what we believe in as Americans. But as Americans, we also believe in capitalism and we believe in the market and we believe in making these things work. So when certain companies can dominate a whole industry, like an Amazon or a Facebook or Google, it's not good for anybody. It's great for them money-wise, but we need to allow room for other companies to come in and innovate. And then when they start to become the next Google or the next Amazon, we need more room to have other companies come in and compete with them. If you're Amazon or Google or Apple or any of the big 4, which is Facebook, Amazon, Google, and Apple, if you're any of those, you should welcome that because it is going to force you to innovate and become better. It'll make a way to get more people involved. And it'll get a broader sense, a wider net to get more employment and make things just better for everybody. I don't see a bad side to breaking these up and creating new pathways for big tech companies. Who knows? Maybe it'll change things to where we're not as reliant on technology. Because Lord knows we are way too reliant on that. On every facet. These are just things to think about. I truly do think that we are at an amazing time in human achievement where we have gone with technology and how fast everything's changed. I think they've changed for the better, but there's obviously things worse with our privacy and how much we're signing away to technology and how much power we're giving these companies. So I think we are at a pinnacle time in human history to start making a change and making a better environment. And I think it can only make things better economically. And I'm not asking for huge regulation and restriction, but I am asking for smarter and better care. And I know that Facebook has taken measures, and I know YouTube has taken measures to, Google, I guess, and YouTube has done measures to make things better, or try to at least, and they're failing miserably in some cases. If you're YouTube, again, that's probably a whole separate issue worth talking about. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that it's time for the government to step in and break up these companies, or are you someone that just believes that the government needs to stay out of business and not get involved with this stuff, or do you agree with me? I don't know. Welcome all opinions. I'd love to see. You know, let me know what you guys think. I'm very very interested to see the different beliefs because that's what makes this country great, isn't it? That's what makes it fun is free speech. All right, I want to close today's show with something I think that's kind of funny and more proof that I hate flying. Look, when it works, flying places is great. But when it doesn't and you have two really annoying horror stories of flying on one trip, it shows you something. So last week, well, I guess technically 10 days ago. Wow, time flies. Anyway, June 14th, Ashley and I, we went to Denver, Colorado to visit some friends and experience Colorado. I love Colorado. It's a beautiful state. If you ever get a chance to go there, do it. It is beautiful over there. The Rocky Mountains. We went up in the mountains. That was fun. I'll kind of give you that story, too. I'll give you just a full rundown of my Colorado trip. So we got there. First off, we have friends that live in Kansas City. So to save $300 on our flight, which, by the way, I live in Des Moines, Iowa. It's a very capable way to drive there. Although I think two there and back, because we did it last summer, I think it's altogether 20 hours. I think it's 10 hours to get there, 10 hours back. I believe. I could be wrong on that. Maybe I'll pull up my Google Maps. That's another thing. Crap. I use Google Maps navigation. Man, tech companies control my life. So we decided to fly this time, so this way we don't necessarily we don't have to take a whole extra day off from work and all that. So we fly, but we also just find out that it is $300 cheaper to fly from Kansas City. So, and we have friends that live in Kansas City, and we just happen to be like, oh, we'll get on the same flight as them. We'll all fly together. It'll be great. Which we did, but Ashley is in. Whenever we go anywhere or make any sort of plans, Ashley's always in charge. Especially if you've listened to this podcast, you know how terrible I am at planning things out. So she's the one who set everything up. Decides that we need to go on a flight at 5 a.m. Which I am not a morning person. She is. She is someone that gets up very early for her job. It manages just fine. I don't. I stay up late. I'm a night owl. I'm a nocturnal guy. Been that way for a while. So we get on to go to this flight at 5 a.m. Now, this is where it really irks me and annoys me. And, I'm not one to not say I told you so. I am someone that will say those kind of things in the moment, and it does not end well for me. So we go to Kansas City International Airport, KCI, for our flight. Wait, was it 5 a.m.? Oh, man. I'm off on my times, but we had to board early. I know that. We had to leave the place we're staying at like almost 4 a.m., which I haven't had to do that since my last job. Gross. So we get to the airport, and we check in, get our bags checked and all that stuff. And we get in line to go to this flight. Now, people are just filing into the Denver line with like 20 minutes maybe. I would say 30 minutes before the flight's supposed to take off, even. Not just boarding, just to leave. So they held us in line forever because they had 3 lines all going to different places. San Francisco, one to Denver, and I think there was one to Mexico. 3 lines, 1 TSA guy. And we're supposed to I don't even think board the plane. I think we're supposed to take off in like 20 minutes. So everybody's filing in. Everybody's rushing. And good Lord. By the way, it was United, which is even funnier to me because, of course, it's United that has these problems. So anyway, we have the 1 TSA guy. And by the way that this airport is set up, if you've ever been to Kansas City's airport, what are you doing? What's this setup? Because they have like this. And by the way, this is just pre-check that this nightmare is occurring. So you file in, and then there's like what what your usual security stuff to board in, but then it's like sectioned off by this wall because they're supposed to remodel something and add to it, but then some company was upset about it and this, that, or the other thing. Point is, it was nonsense. To just put it simply, it was stupid. It was ridiculous. So three lines, one dude doing pre-check. So we're trying to hustle through this. By the way, the plane is already like scheduled to take off. I think, okay, if I remember correctly, it was the flight left at 6, and we were still in line at 5:45 at pre-check. Which, my God. So then we kind of hustled through, and then they were saying like 2 minutes before like their last call to board. And we just got through security. We get on the plane last minute. Now, granted, the plane wasn't going to leave because clearly they screwed up. So that's strike one. Strike one. I guess maybe strike two if we're playing by baseball rules. So that's the first thing. I was like, oh my God. Really? What are we doing here? But nonetheless, we get to Denver, have a great time. We fly back on Frontier, which, oh boy, you get what you pay for with Frontier. If anybody's flown Frontier, you know how cheap that airline is. My God. So, so we get on this plane. Now, the storm is coming. Thunderstorms are coming for Denver as we're boarding, and this is in the afternoon. This is around like I want to say 4:30 Mountain Time. So we're getting on the plane, and I had a feeling this would happen. Ashley had been talking about this, so I think she willed it to happen. Not in a good way. I think she just kind of put it in the ether, and that's what happens. Fate just plucked it and put it on us. So we get into the plane. So my mentality is, holy crap, we might actually get back on time. We might not have to worry about this, right? Completely wrong. The rain starts to pick up. The storm picks up. So guess what? We are in the plane, strapped in, ready to go, and they had literally finished their whole like safety stuff that you do on the plane, like seatbelts and airbags and all this stuff, exits. They're telling us all this stuff. We're almost done, ready to go, and then the captain's like, "Oh well, no, we can't. It's too bad. Weather out. We're stuck here." So we stayed on the runway for an hour before we got cleared for takeoff. And then they said they had to go to a different route. And in that time, was saying, well, we're going to go to this route instead of this route, but we got to get confirmation that we have fuel to go this route and avoid these things. And I'm like, oh, God. And then the flight itself, some turbulence, shaky, rocky flight, not the best flight home. Excuse me, just hit puberty there. So then we land at about 9:30ish our time, Central Time. But that means there's still 3 hours of driving to get home. So that's wonderful. Keep in mind, both of us have to work the next day. So that's exciting. We go to McDonald's because we had anything to eat, so we're going to go grab something from McDonald's to eat real fast. Then we get dealt with, like, I got to say, the last Monday was the worst travel day that we could have had. It was a great trip, but the way getting home was awful. So we go and we get McDonald's. I get my usual order. Ashley gets hers, and it's we have a certain price. It's like $17 or something. So we go up to pay, and we say, this girl that's working there looked like she was a high school girl. She says, this is blah, 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 this is whatever your price is. And Ashley says, no, I don't think that's right. It should be like 17 something. The girl insists that we got the order right. And Ashley goes, I don't think that's right, but hands her the card anyway and gets swiped. And then the girl brings the food, and Ashley's like, no, that's not what we ordered. Kind of like, well, why did you swipe? Like, I don't know. Ashley explained to her 3 times that wasn't the order, right? And so it it gets worse because then she's like, "Well, I just told these people with the window open so you can hear what she's saying." She just is like, "Well, I told these people, like they don't even get their order right or whatever." Because she was complaining about the last people, and I don't know what happened in that time in between, but the people that were in front of us had left, so they had perceived our order as the people that left. So she says this thing like whatever, throws a fit, and goes to the back. So then it's the usual thing whenever you go to a retail store and you know that the other person is completely um, screwed up everything, and they're like gonna go to the back and talk about how terrible you are. I don't know how much spit was on my burger. It tasted fine, but I imagine there's a good amount of saliva on it. So the stereotypical thing when someone goes to the back, the manager comes up, saves the moment, refunds Ashley the money, gives us our food. So then Ashley's just like very, very angry. At this point, we switch spots so I can drive home. Because again, I'm a night owl, so I'll be up late, whatever. She can sleep. So we drive home, and that concluded one of the longest, most annoying travel days with Frontier and being stuck on the runway for over an hour. I fell asleep and snored so loud I woke myself up. But KCI on the day getting to Denver almost butchered that. So I don't know how I feel about flying. I think I'll take a train the next time I go to Colorado. Even probably a lot cheaper. Don't give up on the locomotive industry. Break up big airplanes. That's what we need to do. Not the tech companies. Break up the big airlines. Thank you once again for humoring me that little bit. Like I said, it's kind of like a therapy session. For another episode of The Jake Williams Show. I will see you guys next week. Actually, I'm going to try and see you guys by the end of the week. I might try and get 2 episodes up because I'm still working on getting Derek in for the 1-year anniversary of Loud and Opinionated. And speaking of Loud and Opinionated, please check out the other shows. We got Party Chat, the Underachievers podcast. We kind of changed how we do it, and it's turned more into just Party Chat now, which I'm totally okay with. I love doing that show. We can also check out Loud Sports. It's a podcast to do with Paul Rubidoux and Brandon Plecker. That's going to be exciting because we got some interesting things to talk about coming up soon. And, support those shows. Keep supporting this one. Thank you so much. And follow us on Twitter at Loud Opinionated. On Facebook, you can give us a like, Loud and Opinionated. And most importantly, even if you get upset with your flights or big tech, be loud and be proud.